Welcome to Hogar de Vinos, the space where wine is not just a drink, but an experience that is lived, shared, and understood. Here, we don't just talk about labels and glasses, but about stories, secrets, traditions, and curiosities that make wine a true art. So if you've ever wondered what's behind a good bottle, or want to learn to enjoy wine more and better, this podcast is for you. Make yourself comfortable, pour yourself a glass if you like, and join us. My name is Gustavo, and here at Hogar de Vinos, I'll be your expert in wine scandals. Today we're talking about the Diethylene Glycol Scandal, the crisis that forever transformed the world of wine. June 27th, 1985, marked a before and after in the history of global wine. When laboratories in Stuttgart detected diethylene glycol in an Austrian wine, it triggered a crisis that not only devastated Austria's wine industry, but radically transformed how the world understands, regulates, and consumes wine. 40 years later, the Diethylene Glycol Scandal remains a brutal reminder of how greed and negligence can destroy centuries of tradition, but also of how the deepest crises can catalyze positive and unexpected transformations. To understand the magnitude of the scandal, we must place ourselves in the context of Austria in the 80s. The country had built a prosperous export industry based on semi-sweet and sweet white wines, mainly aimed at the German market. It was an apparently solid business model, accessible wines, with a predictable taste that satisfied the palate of millions of consumers. However, this commercial success contained the seeds of its own destruction. The pressure to fulfill contract obligations with supermarkets, combined with weak harvests like that of 1982, created an environment conducive to dishonesty. When some producers began adding diethylene glycol to their wines to imitate the characteristics of high-end predicate wines, they were not only committing commercial fraud, they were putting thousands of lives at risk. The toxicity of diethylene glycol cannot be underestimated. While propylene glycol is safe for human consumption, diethylene glycol is highly toxic, capable of causing irreversible damage to kidneys, liver, and brain. The fact that a bottle of Welsh Riesling Baron Ausleys from 1981 contained 48 grams per liter, a potentially lethal dose, reveals the absolute irresponsibility of the perpetrators. It was not just a matter of commercial deception. It was literally an attempt at mass poisoning. The immediate reaction to the scandal was as devastating as it was predictable. Austrian exports plummeted from 45 million liters annually to barely 4.4 million in 1986, a 90% drop that would take 15 years to recover from. But the figures don't fully capture the real damage, the destruction of trust. Wine is fundamentally a product of faith. Consumers trust that what they drink is what it claims to be, that it has been made with care and with respect for tradition. When that trust is broken, the consequences go far beyond immediate economic losses. The diethylene glycol scandal did not only affect fraudulent producers, it dragged down hundreds of honest winemakers, families who had dedicated generations to perfecting their art. The response from markets like Japan, which imposed total bans, or the massive withdrawal of Austrian wines from international shelves showed that in the era of global communication, a crisis of trust can spread with the speed of a virus. The Austrian industry learned, in the most painful way possible, that reputation is the most valuable and fragile asset of any sector. But it would be naive to think that the Austrian scandal was an isolated event. Wine adulteration is as old as winemaking itself. From ancient Rome, where the Lex Aquilia already penalized those who adulterated wine, to recent cases like those of Rudy Kernewin or Hardy Rodenstock, fraud has been a constant shadow in the industry. What makes the Austrian case particularly disturbing is that it combined industrial scale with toxicity. Historical frauds, though ethically reprehensible, rarely directly endangered the lives of consumers. Diethylene glycol unequivocally crossed that red line. This historical perspective forces us to reflect on the very nature of authenticity in wine. For centuries, practices like reinforcing Bordeaux and Burgundy wines with more robust reds from the south of France were not only accepted, but also considered necessary. When these practices ended in the 80s, some consumers were surprised by the lightness of authentic wines. So, where do we draw the line between legitimate improvement and fraud? Perhaps the most fascinating thing about the Austrian scandal is how such a devastating crisis became a catalyst for profound transformation. Confronted with the total collapse of its reputation, the Austrian industry had no choice but to completely reinvent itself. The abandonment of the low-cost sweet wine model in favor of high-quality dry whites, particularly Gruner Veltliner, was not just a commercial change. It was a philosophical revolution. From competing on price to competing on quality, from mass production to artisanal production, from opacity to transparency. The creation of the Austrian Wine Marketing Board in 1986 symbolized that new approach. It was not just about promoting wines, but about guaranteeing and communicating their quality. The message was clear. This will never happen again. And the results spoke for themselves. Today, Austrian wines are recognized globally for their exceptional quality. Gruner Veltliner has become an international cult variety, and Austria is considered one of the most innovative and respected producers in the world. The crisis that should have destroyed the industry, paradoxically, elevated it to new heights. The Diethylene Glycol Scandal also accelerated international regulatory harmonization. The European Union, recognizing that quality problems in one country could affect the entire region, implemented much stricter legal frameworks. The regulations on protected designations of origin, DOP, and protected geographical indications, IGP, that we know today are in part a direct response to this crisis. But this regulatory evolution also raises important questions. To what extent has European standardization homogenized wines? Have we gained in safety what we have lost in diversity? The fact that the scandal has permeated popular culture, from references in The Simpsons to specialized documentaries and books, speaks of its lasting impact on collective consciousness. Because wine is not just a drink. It is culture, it is tradition, it is identity. And when that trust is betrayed, the scars remain in cultural memory. 40 years later, the Diethylene Glycol Scandal remains relevant. In an era where authenticity has become a premium value, where consumers demand total transparency about what they consume, the lessons of 1985 resonate with particular force. Today, the wine industry faces new challenges: climate change, sustainability, pressure from globalized markets. But the fundamental principles that emerge from the Austrian crisis, quality over quantity, transparency over opacity, respect for the consumer over short-term profits, remain more important than ever. The Diethylene Glycol Scandal in Austria teaches us that even the most devastating crises can contain seeds of renewal. The industry not only survived its worst nightmare, it transformed it into its greatest strength. Today, when a consumer uncorks a bottle of Austrian Gruner Veltliner, they are drinking not just wine. They're drinking the history of an industry that hit rock bottom and decided to build something better. And that transformation was not accidental, nor inevitable. It required courage, vision, and a deep understanding that true quality allows for no shortcuts. Austrian producers learned that consumer trust is not an infinite resource that can be exploited with impunity, but a precious asset that must be cultivated with care and fiercely protected. In a world where corporate scandals multiply, where trust in institutions constantly erodes, the story of the Austrian wine industry offers a lesson of hope. It demonstrates that it is possible not only to recover from a crisis of trust, but to emerge stronger, more ethical, and more respected than before. The Diethylene Glycol Scandal of 1985 was undoubtedly one of the darkest chapters in the history of wine. But it was also, paradoxically, the beginning of one of the brightest. In the alchemy of disaster, Austria transformed the lead of dishonor into the gold of excellence. And in that transformation, we find not only the story of an industry, but a lesson about the human capacity for redemption and renewal. Wine, after all, is the beverage of transformation par excellence. Perhaps it was fitting that an industry dedicated to turning grapes into something sublime found a way to turn its worst crisis into its greatest triumph. And now that you know, tell us, what do you think about this topic?
Do you believe that scandals can serve to boost the industry and make it advance? If you are interested in delving deeper into the fascinating world of wine, we recommend the book by José Pradillo, Hogar de Vinos, Fundamentos y Práctica, available on Amazon. An essential guide for enophiles, gourmets, and service professionals who wish to understand where those aromas and flavors of wine that we enjoy so much come from and how they are produced. And if you live in Central or Southern Florida, are you a waiter? Do you work in hospitality? Do you own a restaurant? Or are you simply passionate about the world of wine? From Hogar de Vinos, we offer personalized training for restaurants, hotels, events, or private groups. They're designed to train waiters and wine lovers in the art of service and pairing. If you want more information on how to organize an educational session for your team or establishment, do not hesitate to contact us through the link in the description. Invest in training. Learn, taste, share. Because every bottle has something to tell, and you can be the bridge between the wine and whoever enjoys it. If you like this episode, subscribe to Hogar de Vinos on your favorite platform and follow us on social media with the same name, Hogar de Vinos. There, we share more content, tips, pairings, and curiosities that you will love. And don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, Hogar de Vinos. Like and subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it helps us continue sharing interesting content. Thanks for listening and for making it to the end. And remember, here at Hogar de Vinos, we are clear. Because wine is appreciated more if it is known better.